sitting today with Dan Albas, the Member of Parliament for the Central Okanagan-Similkameen-Nicola riding, soon to become, or now becoming, Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna. New riding, but same issues.
Well, you bet. The Speaker of the House will have a long time learning to pronounce all of that. Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna is a long name for riding.
And you were first elected in 2011 in what was the old Okanagan-Coquihalla riding, Stockwell Days old riding.
Yes.
You're running for re-election for a fourth time. What's changed? What's different between, say, the issues of 2011, the issues of 2025, and how you're dealing with those?
Well, my experience at the doors is this. We have a lot of seniors right now that had to make a lot of very tough decisions around heating, eating, and medicine. We have a lot of young families that aren't sure of their future. They can't get into a house, and so they're asking, should I stay in British Columbia or should I, go to some place like Alberta? And their grandparents and their parents often don't have the money to finance a down payment through the bank of mom and dad. And there's also just a sense that our quality of life. So I'll give you an example. Physicians, nurses have told me they're working harder than ever before, and they're doing a wonderful job trying to keep our healthcare system together. But people are saying that our public services have deteriorated. And I hear that a lot. And this is an area where we've lost a decade. If you look at our per capita GDP, that means every single man, woman, and child in this country, we're actually less wealthy than we were in 2017. And a lot of those decisions were made by the Liberal government. A lot of those decisions were made by Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau, because Mark Carney was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor the past 5 years. So I'm trying to bring people a message of hope. We're talking about how working seniors, those that have to, we're going to let them keep more of their money by raising the exemption on how much they can earn before they start paying taxes. For young families or even seniors in the lowest tax bracket that are paying taxes, we're actually going to lower the tax by 15% in that bracket, from 15% down to 12.75. That's up to $900 per person, especially if it's a couple. So these are the things to kind of get people through right now. But I also got to say, Wayne, if we're going to build this country, if we're going to build the infrastructure, if we're going to be less reliant on the Americans, for example, for trade and for security, then we need to get our economy going. And so the Conservative plan, I believe, is not just good for Canada in terms of building up our GDP, putting more money in people's pockets, building more homes. I also think that it's going to help us to be able to keep our social safety net strong, build that infrastructure so we can sell our products to the world, and most of all, help a whole generation of Canadians so that they can stay and live here. And I think that's really important, especially around the hospital. You get a lot of young professionals that say, will I want to stay here and be a nurse? Will I want to stay here and be a medical technologist? They'll go to other places if they can't find a permanent place to stay. So cutting the GST off of homes, that gives them some hope. And lastly, I'll just say this too. It's not just public services. Just, look in our cities, both Kelowna, West Kelowna. We have homelessness, we have drug issues, we have crime. And we got to have both a sense of compassion for the people that are in very tough circumstances, because this economy has pushed a lot of people into bad situations. But we also have to have some accountability, and we also need to get people on their feet and into work that builds up their life. So these are all the themes I'm hearing at the doors.
You've introduced a lot of interesting discussion points. I want to start with the Mark Carney, Justin Trudeau comparator. 6 months ago, if we were holding an election, I don't think there's any secret that the Conservatives would have won a very strong majority with Justin Trudeau still at the helm. Now that Mark Carney has taken over that position of Prime Minister, the polls have changed, and it seems as if people are more trusting of what could be a Mark Carney government, and they've taken the lead in the polls in many of them. How do you reconcile that?
Well, look, you can just talk to Stephen Fuhr when he lost in 2019. He basically said Trudeau was an anchor around his neck, and for obvious reasons. the decisions that they made from the very beginning, putting in C-69, the No New Pipelines bill. We've seen, $150 billion worth of energy and natural resource projects go south. And, people really felt that Justin Trudeau didn't have the economy balance right. And on that, Mark Carney, when he came through Kelowna, he promised that he would use his emergency powers to get pipelines built. 5 days later, in Quebec, he said that he would honor what provinces want. And then this morning, he was asked about C-69, the No New Pipelines bill in the prairies, and he said that he would only take out some sections of it, that he's going to leave the No New Pipelines as part of that. So this is classic Justin Trudeau talk, classic Liberal talk. They will promise you anything to get elected. Let's bear in mind, in 2019, they promised they would keep the carbon tax at $40 a ton. Now it was supposed to go up, to $95 a ton? Mm-hmm. And they were saying that anyone who opposed the carbon tax didn't believe that we're climate deniers. And yet, now they've zero-rated it. They haven't, by the way, eliminated the carbon tax. The Conservatives, we will eliminate the carbon tax both for consumers and also for industrial producers. And I'll just tell you why, just 1 second. At a time where we have threats coming from our southern neighbors, we have Donald Trump saying he's going to put more tariffs on Canadian products, and suddenly we're saying we're going to add an industrial tax on our pulp and paper, on our LNG, on our oil and gas. These things are job killers. And essentially, we would be raising the price of our products to export at the very time they're being tariffed. So, this is the problem we have with Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney. They will say whatever they need to say to get elected, and I think that's a shame. I want to believe that when you're the Prime Minister of this country, we can believe in your word. And that's the challenge that we have today.
There are people in this country, in this riding, that have fear that your leader, Pierre Poilievre, is, for want of a better phrase, I guess Donald Trump light. Some of the rhetoric, some of the phraseologies, very reminiscent of Donald Trump's rhetoric. That is a concern.
Sure. So let's address this. First of all, it seems that it doesn't matter who we put up for a prime minister. Mm-hmm. They seem to find a way to demonize that individual. But you know what? The one thing I would say about Pierre Poilievre is he's grown as a person. Ever since he met his wife, Anna, she was a Venezuelan refugee, came to Canada, essentially the Canadian story here. And now the two of them are working to try and turn this country around for their children. And that's a very hopeful message. When he talks about, we want to restore the promise of Canada, that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. That's the things that I like to hear from Pierre Poilievre. Now, can he be tough on Justin Trudeau? Absolutely. But that toughness, for example, when he challenged Justin Trudeau and the Liberals on the carbon tax, look where we are today. Suddenly people are going to start getting some relief at the pumps. That is a Conservative victory. But it is not a total victory. We've won a battle. We need to win the war. We cannot let Mark Carney and his Liberals zero rate, tell everyone that the carbon tax is gone, and then put it on industrial operators. So the power that we get, the fuel you get in your car, all of that will become a hidden tax. A shadow carbon tax is what Mark Carney has called it.
Isn't you mentioned making the country better for their family and other generations. Isn't that the goal of? I mean, if you talk to every politician, that's what they want. The difference is how to get there, as far as party ideology is concerned.
Oh, absolutely. Look, all the candidates that are going to be running in Okanagan, Lake West, South Kelowna, I believe are there for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. They're there to give people choice, just like I'm here to give people choice. But we also need accountability from our government. It doesn't matter what stripe it is. And I will tell you this, that I want to have a government. I want to have a prime minister that can speak to the Canadian business community, look them in the eyes and say, I want you to invest and do more here. I don't want a prime minister who's literally written the book about how to take your business to New York. That's exactly what Mark Carney did this year as chair of the board, they made decisions to move Brookfield Asset Management to New York. His company has used tax strategies that are in places like Bermuda. So, look, this guy is in different circles than you and I, Wayne. This guy has multiple passports, and that's why I think Donald Trump likes him so much and has endorsed him twice already. The reason why he likes him is because they go through the same kind of networks of who they know. They're very well off, and just like Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney has a fund, a trust fund, and whether he wins or loses, whether he creates a strong economy or wrecks it like we've seen with Justin Trudeau, he can just walk away from it. But you, your family, Wayne, all of our families, we're the ones that have to wear that loss. And I will tell you, I've never seen a federal government that has received so much money. We don't have a revenue problem in this country. We have a spending problem. We are spending more than we ever have, and yet we're getting worse results. So I ask people, do you think you're going to be better off with the same old liberal tactics where they'll promise? Remember, 2015, Justin Trudeau promised more affordable housing, that the federal government was back in the business of housing. $80 billion for their national strategy for housing. And yet we have less building ever before. You know who I trust? I trust the builders here in Kelowna that know where the opportunities are. That's why we want to make housing cheaper by cutting the GST. Not the Liberal plan where they kind of plagiarized and kind of stole little bits and pieces just like they did in the carbon tax. We actually want to take the GST off of homes, and we want to challenge every provincial government to do the same. That will make financing new homes easier. That will make where people can buy those homes easier. That means when a young couple here wants to move into an older home, because that older home that's now by just one or two, a senior or a couple, they want to downsize. Now they'll get the benefit of that GST off that new condo that they're getting into.
I do want to ask you.
So it's a win-win for everyone when we start talking about policies that are good for Canada and good for the Okanagan.
I do want to ask you about housing, and there is some concern locally about the Housing Accelerator Fund that Kelowna has. I think they're in year 2 now of that fund. West Kelowna has just received that fund. I know you helped push that a number of months ago. There is talk, and Mr. Poilievre has mentioned that he would scrap that. Is that the current plan? And what would, I know cutting the GST is one, but is that on the table? So
as a constituency MP, I always help my communities.
Of course.
But I also know it's important to know what you're funding. So essentially, the Kelowna portion, if you actually look at it, it can go towards bike lanes. It can go towards sewers. It can go towards a bridge. But it doesn't actually build a home. See, the only place that someone's going to be able to sleep in under this thing is under that bridge I mentioned. So rather than funding bureaucracy, what we have said is that we will actually use the money, reallocate it, just move it over, and offer it in tax relief. Now, the head of the CEO of the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation had said in committee on December 10th that this will stimulate new housing development more than what is currently available. So we're going to see well over 36,000 new homes every year from doing this. And remember, if we make the housing cheaper, if we get rid of labor shortages by training 350,000 new trades apprentices, like Pierre Poilievre has said that he will. We'll work with unions, we'll work with colleges, we'll work with whoever we need to. If we have more people that bring the cost of housing down, and we're taking less as government, we're going to see a lot more housing. That's going to help young couples. That's going to help keep these young professionals like nurses and medical technologists in our area so that they can look after our senior population. It'll give more options for seniors who want to downsize, and it'll give more options for families that are growing, that they want to get into a new home, they can do it. This is good for everyone. So we need to see more housing, cheaper, and more people that can build houses everywhere in this country.
Dan, as we wrap this up, I want to give you a chance to Look into the camera, talk to the constituents of Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna, and give them your best pitch why they should put a check mark beside your name April 28th.
Well, I really appreciate Castanet giving me this opportunity. I've been a member of Parliament. I feel that there are some serious issues facing our country. We are less united as we should. We are facing threats abroad. And we're also seeing the consequences of 10 years, a lost Liberal decade under Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney. We can't give them a fourth term. Let's get a new Conservative government, one that knows the Okanagan, one that will do good things for the Okanagan. And one of the big things I think it's really important when we're talking about these serious issues, you need someone that can work with other parliamentarians from all stripes. I started an all-party cancer caucus. I've worked to get drugs for cystic fibrosis individuals in our riding approved faster because it's the right thing to do. I return phone calls. I personally try to take their concerns to Ottawa. I hope that you like that approach, and I'll continue to be accessible, and I'll continue to make sure we get results in Ottawa if I have the honor, Wayne, of being the new Member of Parliament for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna. Good luck. Hope you can find someone that you can vote for and not just against.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it as always, and good luck April 28th.
Thanks for letting me speak to our voters.